All right, let's get started. Today we're going to cover first the rotate tool. Let's get started. I am going to share my screen. If you guys can just give me a thumbs up when you see it. Perfecto. Okay, so let's dive in here. And the first thing I want to do is cover this new rotate tool. And essentially what this tool does is it takes your 2D image, uses AI to determine what the 3D model of that image is, projects your image onto that 3D model, and then you can rotate it in real time. And then once you've locked in your rotation, it essentially sends that as a new prompt to AI to render that image in that new rotation. So that's what it's doing in the background. There are limitations to how good it is, and that's what we're going to explore first. So first, I'll just show you how the tool works. To use the tool, you do need a subject that's cut out from the background, right? So if I tried to do use the tool here, the first thing it would do is look for a subject, try to cut it out, and so forth. You're going to have more control if you do that step yourself rather than letting AI kind of guess for you. So in this case, what I would do is I would just make a copy of my layer. In this case, I want to rotate the car. So I'm going to do Command J just to make a copy and then remove background from my copy. That way I have the car without the background. And I'm going to turn this into a smart object. That way my transform controls are around the car, not the whole layer. Okay, so now I have it ready to rotate, but as soon as I start rotating, the existing car is going to still be in the background. So let's go ahead and just get rid of that. I'm going to make one more copy, and we can call this clean background. And then from here, we'll just select our subject, which is going to be the car, and then maybe hit Q and expand our selection a bit to make sure we've included the ground, sorry, meaning where the shadow is. So in this case, that would be this area here. And that's probably good enough. Okay, and then I'm going to hit Q again, and just to make sure I don't miss any pixels on this edge, I'm just going to go here and go to expand selection, and I'll do that by about 20 pixels. And then I'm going to hit the remove button. So essentially now I'm kind of cleaning or creating a clean back plate that my object is sitting on. Now obviously we won't have a nice shadow anymore, but we can add a shadow in afterwards. So now we have our background as its own layer and our subject as its own layer. Now I want to rotate this. So the rotate tool is going to be under Edit, Rotate Object. That's where you'll find the tool. You can also, because it's somewhat closely related to free transform, what you might want to do is go into your keyboard shortcuts, find it, and then maybe assign that the shortcut Shift Option T, or sorry, Command Shift Option T, which currently creates a duplicate while transforming again. Depending on whether you use that or not, you might try Command Shift T, which is transform again. Honestly, I don't use transform again that much. So for now, I'm going to make that my shortcut. So we're going to do that. So I've applied the shortcut, meaning I've activated the tool. The first thing it's doing is in the background, it's creating its 3D model of my subject, porting that back into Photoshop here, where we now have a low-res preview of that 3D object. So in here, you can rotate it this way. And you can also rotate it this way. And then this one here controls basically your zoom perspective. So think of it almost like if this was your camera, this changes your zoom amount on your camera. So that's a wide angle lens and that's a telescopic lens. So by doing that, you're essentially controlling the perspective of your object. Someone said the preview is in low res, but essentially once we've committed, it's going to re-render it using AI in higher resolution. I'm going to reset this for now, and let's just rotate the car so that it's pointing the other way. So we're going to do this, and then maybe a little bit down, just so that it looks like it belongs on the street. So maybe something like this. Now when I hit done, essentially it's taking a snapshot of this and re-rendering it in high resolution, which is what it's doing now. And then you'll see the final outcome. Okay, so it re-rendered it. And then from here, we'd have to add in our shadow again, which would probably do something like this. Maybe make that just a black layer. Put that on multiply. And let's give it some blur. And we'll take down the opacity of it. And having done that, you can see we've got this white halo around here. So to get rid of that, I'm just going to command click on the layer, go down here, contract my selection by maybe 2 pixels, and then add a mask onto that layer. Okay, so there you can see, I mean, like doing that in Photoshop was impossible a week ago. You'd have to get a different photo, or you'd have to rotate the photo, but then you'd have the lighting from the other side. You'll notice that here, because the light's coming in, this has much more light reflection than this, but it's obviously using the information of what this side of the car looked like to figure out what that side did. So very powerful tool for something like this. You know, you got an element in the background that you need to rotate. It's going to do a pretty darn good job. Now, where the tool doesn't do great is on people's faces. And then where you're basically rotating and the AI has to do too much guessing as to what it should look like. In this case, because we have one side of the car and most cars look the same on both sides, it has a lot of interpretive or contextual information to decide how it's going to rotate that car. So let's take a few other examples here, and I've already kind of prepared a few, so I'll show you results. So in this case, we have a side profile, and it's trying to determine a 1/4 degree profile based on that. Not doing a great job there. This looks very fake. Now, I will say the back is halfway decent because you don't have skin tone there. It does look almost painted, however. But in a pinch, you could use that image for something, right? This one, it looks like a low-res polygon video game character. Is definitely not usable as like the subject of your composite. Okay, let's take another example. I thought this was a really good example because you can see how the tool gets progressively worse the farther away you're going from the original context. So here, very little deviation from the original context, but you can see we have rotated it and it's done a really good job keeping, kind of inventing where the changes are. The fact that it keeps the transparency of your image is really cool. So, from this to this, totally usable. Even if it was the subject of your photo, that's still usable. As you start to get away, you can see our skin tone is starting to have weird artifacts in it. This is starting to look more plastic. Even this is starting to look more plastic. And then as we get further away, now we start to see even worse artifacting. The skin is no longer really looking like skin. We have weird skin texture on the knuckles there. And now we're starting to get even more weird looking skin. And by this, we've almost entirely lost the plot. This would not be anywhere near usable for a subject of your photo. So you can kind of see the diminishing returns here. For a small adjustment, amazing. For a like 180 turn, it's kind of useless. So I think this gives you a very good idea of kind of the power of the tool and also where it breaks down. I did another one. So this one, it doesn't have enough information on what's on the back side of this. And you can see trying to rotate this, absolute useless. So for that, you're not going to be able to use that tool. I also looked at it for what would it do on a building using the other rotation, right? Rather than rotating it around the y-axis, we're rotating it around the x-axis. And it's doing a somewhat decent job. Changing the perspective on this in Photoshop previously, you'd have to do like cut both elements in half and then do a lot of free transform and skewing. So this is essentially doing the same thing, but a lot faster and with AI. Now it does kind of degrade certain elements, like this is much more readable to the human eye as to what it is compared to this, which is no longer readable. At a distance, you can say, oh yeah, that's an ornamental statue. But in this photo, you can actually see what the ornamental statue is. You can identify the lion. You can identify the person holding a crown with a sword. In this one, you can only identify that it is a statue and maybe guess that it's a sword. But all those other details have corrupted out of usefulness. But again, it's contextual. If this is a background element and you have your subject of interest in the foreground, nobody's going to really notice that. If this is the main element of your image, then it becomes a problem. Let's take a look. So those are kind of the examples I looked at, but those give you a pretty good idea of how the tool works and also what are its limitations. My kind of initial assessment is for small changes, it's really good. For bigger changes where it has to guess too much as to what used to be there, it's not really going to work. However, it's definitely I would say it's very promising for the future of AI in Photoshop, where we can actually manipulate things in the user interface where you're making creative decisions in real time. I feel like that is a much better use of AI in Photoshop than something that's entirely prompt based, where you have no real time preview of what you're doing, what the result is going to be, and you're essentially just iterating endlessly until you get the result that you want. This has much more causality and creativity to it. So I'm hoping more tools in the future kind of take this approach to AI rather than the just prompt-based AI. Any questions on this tool? I did notice one question in the Academy. Someone mentioned that the tool was grayed out. My suspicion is the tool is based on 8-bit. So my suspicion is if your file is 16 or 32-bit, the tool is not going to work. And let's see. Yeah. So you see the tool is grayed out. as soon as my file became 16-bit. So if you took your photo from RAW, if your workflow is from Lightroom, your image is probably 16-bit. And the solution is just switching it over to 8-bit in order to see the tool and not have it grayed out. So I know that's not someone who asked it here, but they are in the Academy. So when you see this, that's your answer there. All right. Tamian asks, can it rotate any object, or does it have to be an isolated object? So I'll show you what happens if you haven't isolated your object ahead of time. Essentially, Photoshop is going to do it for you. So finding the subject in the image, so it'll do that first. It's then going to separate your image, turn it into a 3D model isolated from the background, and then let you do the rotation. So, or it's not even going to let you do it at all and it's going to error. But I did do a test the other day and it did separate it, but I found that I got much better results if I separated it first and then just had Photoshop do the rotation. So hopefully, Tamian, that answers your question.